Okay. We may have gotten a little bit of that recorded at the beginning. That's okay. Little false start there. So welcome everybody to Demetra's free info session about her summer retreat, Hellenistic Astrology Applied. So Demetra will be offering this retreat in Portland, Oregon, 11th through 15th at the famous, well, locally famous anyway, McMenamin's Kennedy School, which is a really lovely old elementary school that was converted into this entertainment complex featuring classrooms, workshop rooms, but also it's like a hotel, restaurants, it's got pubs in it, it's got a little waiting pool and movie theater. It's pretty cool if you haven't seen it. So really excited to be able to offer the workshop, which Demetra is going to tell you about here in just a minute, but also just to be in such a cool historic venue. That really gives you a taste of Portland and what Portland's all about. So welcome, Demetra.
Okay, thank you, Tony, and thanks everyone for tuning in here to hear about what our plans are for the summer. I think now it's probably been almost 10 years since I had this idea of having an annual, what I would call it was the Friends of Valens summer camp. And Valens was one of the foremost and most important of the Hellenistic astrologers, and thought it would be wonderful to gather together people who had an interest in remembering, reclaiming, re-understanding the astrology that was given to us by our forebears, and to be able as a group to engage in that study. I've seen how when we learn and study in a group, there is something about the dynamic of all the energies together that greatly accelerate and intensify and speed up the learning process. And this is also what one of my hopes are for what's going to happen here. But unlike much of the other work that those of us who have been involved in traditional astrology have been presenting at conferences and webinars about what Hellenistic and traditional astrology is. What I want to do here is actually show you how to use it, teach you how to use it, and watch you doing that so I can make sure that you understand it and you have a good sense of how to apply it to your charts. And that when you leave this week, you have a number of tools in your toolbox that you feel confident in being able to integrate and add to your consultation and other astrological work. I taught the Hellenistic astrology course for almost 6 years at Kepler College. That was developed under the supervision of Robert Schmidt, and this was between 2002 and 2006. And after I left Kepler College, I took on private students. And my thoughts on that was that I wanted to have develop personal relationships with each student. Part of the teachings that the ancient astrologers gave us was that this was a mystery tradition. And like all mystery traditions, it is most effective when it can be passed on directly from teacher to students and then passed on from them. And as I would meet with my students by phone or Skype every week or every other week, I wanted to make sure that they understood what I had taught them by having them repeat the process in the charts of people that they knew that they were working on. And some of the doctrines initially can be complex or confusing, and I didn't want to be putting out all this information and then having people not really understanding it, using it incorrectly, and passing on that misunderstanding to others. So that was part of why I wanted that individual contact. But at this retreat, I'm ready to branch out and to be able to do it as a group. And what will be different about this is that while in the morning I will give some of the lecture material, I have been all this year developing workbook exercises and tables and worksheets that I'll distribute to the group. And then we will start filling in the tables. And in the afternoon, the group will be divided into two groups. I sometimes joke about the day sect and the night sect teams. We'll be looking at the charts of the candidates and applying the Hellenistic criteria to their charts. And then after the group works out the teachings of that morning in the practice charts in the afternoon, as a group, they'll give the presentation to everyone else. And so not only are you learning from me, but you're also going to be learning from each of your classmates who attend the retreat. And as a group, you'll work together to fully integrate and understand how to apply the concepts. Then the final part of each day will be the opportunity to apply this principles to your own chart, which I think ultimately as astrologers, we have the burning curiosity, yes, but what does this mean for me? And there'll be some teaching assistants there. We'll go around to answer your questions, and then you can again present your findings to the group and get the input from others as well as from me about how this functions in your own life. So this is my vision for the retreat, of having it be highly interactive, highly practical, and to be working with workbook exercises similar to astrology for yourself, but designed for the Hellenistic principles. So immediately you can anchor, apply, understand, and reflect on how these concepts can be utilized in chart interpretation. So I can say a little bit more, but I think I'll see if you have questions, and then I'll wrap up with some final comments I'd like to make.
Great.
So,
yeah,
Tony,
sounds really great. Yeah, if you have any questions, just go ahead and type in the chat window. We have a few too many people to turn on everyone's audio, so I'm not going to do that. But if somebody has a long question and just wants to type in the chat window, I have a long question, and you're not on a mobile device, pop that in, and I can try to turn on your audio so that you can ask your question at length rather than having to type in a really long question.
Okay.
Looks like nothing so far. Astarte and is typing in a question now, so we can. And Jenny's typing in a question. What about? Yeah, that's a great question. Abby asks, what about everyone's different abilities coming to the workshop?
Well, I would, if the people who come to the workshop understand the basic meanings of the planets, signs, houses, and aspects, and the aspects, just the trine and square and sextile, then that will give them the foundation to then be able to enter into the Hellenistic criteria. And one of the things I wanted to say is that the underlying theme is, we know from our studies, in general studies in astrology, that each planet and sign and house has a range of many different possibilities, some that are very positive and helpful, and others that are difficult and challenging. And one of the places where we get stuck as astrologers is, well, when we see a particular chart, how do we know if we give the best possible interpretation, or that we acknowledge that there are maybe some difficulties here? And this is what the Hellenistic and traditional astrology is primed to be able to help you clarify how a planet's condition, according to its sign and house and aspect and solar phase, all contribute to helping us understand what we can expect, or what's the most likely outcome of how it functions in a person's life. And so this will help you with all of your interpretation. And then in terms of taking exams for ESAR, if you feel confident in your ability to interpret a chart, then this is what all of the exams, national certification exams, ultimately are trying to ensure that we know how to interpret charts. So this will very much help you and contribute to that. I don't know the idea of will it help you develop your business of astrology. I feel the best way you can develop your business is by being a good astrologer. Okay.
Great, thanks, Demetra. Keith is wondering if the course is going to look at integrating the modern planets with the asteroids into the Hellenistic framework.
Not specifically, although Keith probably knows, and many others of you know, that while I use the Hellenistic as my foundation, I continue to look at 500 asteroids for every chart that I do, as well as the outer planets. But I treat the outer planets and the asteroids quite differently than I do the 7 classical planets. And during the parts of each day that will be open to general questions, certainly that can be brought up, and I can give some examples of where and how the outers and the asteroids can be brought into the Hellenistic interpretation. So certainly, yes, I can make room to do that.
And Jenny, I think that to answer your question just a little bit more, I think you might be asking, is the workshop really going to just be for somebody who wants to do astrology professionally? And I think that what you'll find in the workshop, because of the way Demetra's structuring the afternoon sessions, is that it has many applications. So even if you're just trying to do charts for friends and family, or even just focus on your own, you're still going to definitely get something out of the workshop.
Right, you'll get a very deep understanding of your own chart and how to understand your life and the life of the people that are closest to you.
And Christina is asking if there are any prerequisites, if she should be prepped by any particular online course first. And I'll just give a quick answer first, just that we do have an online download called Traditional Astrology 101. And although you don't need to take it to come to the workshop, I think if you do listen to that audio program first, you'll just be even more prepared to go deeper, and you'll be able to integrate the material a little bit easier, and you'll probably be able to ask better questions. Yeah, Demetra, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think that's helpful, Tony, and that there's a lot of new vocabulary words that come up in traditional astrology. So the first time you hear them, it might be a lot. If you have already heard them, you may have more space to take in their meanings. But one of the things that I specialize in is the teaching of beginning students and working in a way that is very starting off simple and building up complexity. So while it's not necessary that people do that, it could be helpful if you have the thirst for learning.
And Sheila Jean is asking a specific astrological question, and I don't. This may be a little bit out of scope, but Sheila Jean, are you asking in terms of what Demetra is going to be presenting at the workshop? Like, is she going to be presenting that topic? And Demetra, I'll just read the question out loud. She says, does a planet's condition affect that planet as it transits through other houses as well? For instance, with radix Jupiter and Gemini, is Jupiter still causing painful manifestations as it transits Virgo for the native?
Okay, one of the basic premises of the traditional astrology is that a planet's condition in your own chart at birth has an effect on how it will operate when it becomes a Time Lord by any of the various timing mechanisms. So if you have a really functionally benefic Saturn in your natal chart then Saturn transits are likely to be times of positive accomplishment for you individually. If the condition of Jupiter in your natal chart is challenged, and they say of the benefics, Jupiter and Venus, are never bad. They're the only bad thing is that they're limited in the amount of good that they can do. So then when you have Jupiter transits, there may still be fortunate outcomes, but maybe not quite as fortunate as other people have. And again, it goes back to Jupiter's condition in your natal chart. So understanding the natal potential also allows you to understand what you can reasonably expect when that planet activates the chart through any of the various timing mechanisms. Did that answer your question?
I'm sure it did. That was a great answer. Thanks, Demetra. Sheila Jean was also wondering if Hellenistic astrology employs cures like they do in Vedic astrology. I guess remediation.
Let's see, I'm pausing and I'm thinking here. In what we are going to be doing this week, there aren't, I'm not going to be presenting cures in terms of plants and metals and stones and mantras and other things. Although in the Hermetic astrological tradition that flowed a lot into the realm of astral magic, there is a stream of it that does utilize the remedial cures. And you will see instances of if one wants to make a plea to Venus for a certain kind of intercession of what she signifies in one's chart, one can do a ritual on a Venus day at a Venus hour with roses and apples and other Venus-related correspondences. So that tradition does exist within the ancient astrology, particularly within the Hermetic branch, but that's not what we're going to be doing this week. But it's out there.
Thanks, Demetra. Abby asks about lodging for the event, which is a great question. So we've just found out that the Kennedy School, where we're having the event, is already full. They're already fully booked up. And but the good news is that the Kennedy School is in this really, really great neighborhood in Portland. It's like it's not in the downtown area. It's actually in a residential area. And so there are a lot of Airbnbs in the neighborhood, and there are also a lot of very cool Airbnbs close by. So I'd recommend searching Airbnb, and you can search for zip code 97211, or you can search for the McMenamins Kennedy School and grab their zip code. I think it's still 97211, but they may be just the next zip code over. Also, there are a couple of hotels close by on MLK near the Convention Center. A newer hotel that's down there is called Hotel Eastland. It's EASTLUND. It is on in a busy area, so it's quite different. You know, if you want quiet lodging, you might go for an Airbnb. And then there's a traditional bed and breakfast pretty close by on 15th called A Painted Lady Inn and Breakfast. And then there's another one close by as well called Portland's White House. So I'll be posting that to the website, and I'll definitely be sending that out to folks who register so they can have some options about what to choose. But thanks for asking.
Yeah, I wanted to add to that, Tony, that for people who would like to find other people to room with, we could send emails about, and it may be that a group of people can find an apartment that has a couple of rooms in it that they can all share together.
Definitely, that would be really cool. And
yeah.
And there's probably one within walking distance of the Kennedy School. So.
Right. When I looked online, I saw 130 Airbnbs within the immediate vicinity.
Okay, great. Yeah, this is a very popular neighborhood for Airbnb, so I don't think you'll have any trouble. So Jenny asks, so if I understand it right, the class is presenting from the Hellenistic point of view versus other ways like the evolutionary school or modern astrology, right? And the method is focused on integration and whole chart interpretation of the theme?
Yes, it is definitely the Hellenistic astrology as a basis for all the subsequent traditional astrologies, the Arabic, medieval, and Renaissance tradition. But we don't live 2,000 years ago. We live now. And always, my perspective is how can we take the essence of these teachings and carry them forward to be able to utilize them in ways that are applicable to the kinds of experiences that contemporary individuals have.
Thanks, Demetra. Claudia asks if you'll be spending much time on the houses from the Hellenistic perspective. Your webinars on them are so rich.
Yes, that's the final part of the week. Is the first part will be thoroughly understanding the condition of each planet. And then once we do that, we'll then place the planets in the houses they occupy and look at the houses that they rule. And then finally be able to create our interpretation of what can we expect from this planet to bring forth regarding those topics. Is it likely to happen? Is it unlikely to is that topic unlikely to happen? Will it be good? Will it be bad? And once we know that, then we can craft our interpretation. And as counselors, and every time we read a chart for someone else, we've entered into the counseling mode. I would never tell a client that this part of their life is, let's see, I don't exactly want to use the word negative, but this part of their life is really challenged. But it's important that as astrologers we understand that, so that when we give the interpretation, we're not making promises about the best case scenario that's out there for the individual and giving them a false sense of hope. Now, the question of free will is something else altogether that can transcend that, but we are studying what the chart itself tells us. And when we see that there are very difficult patterns, and we'll get into that, into the maltreatment, we know that these are indications of some kind of trauma that the individuals experience. And when we see that, that alerts us to the fact that a simple reading is not going to make the person's life better, but that we need to direct them to professional help. And this is, one of my rants as an astrologer, to know the difference between when something will fix itself on its own when the transit is over, and when something is a serious enough wound that it needs a kind of attention that as astrologers we cannot supply, and to encourage the person to seek other help. And this is what an understanding of planetary condition can allow us to do in our clients' best interests.
Thanks,
I don't know if that was more of an answer than you wanted, but you press one of the buttons.
Yeah, that was great. I'm sure more is better. So thanks for the question, Claudia. Blue Star asks if you're going to be covering the topic of planets conjunct planets combust. So she was asking specifically about Venus combust the sun.
Absolutely. There's going to be a whole day on solar phase and the planet's relationship to the sun in terms of its speed, its direction, its visibility, being under the beams of its phases. So the way I sort of see the days is day one will be the introduction, and we'll look at the natures of the planets and the themes around sect. Day two, we will look at all of the conditions around zodiacal rulerships and the powers that come from a planet being in different zodiacal rulerships and with its sect mates. Day 3 is focused around all of the solar phase material. Day 4 is on aspects and maltreatment. And then day 5 is making our final evaluations. We're going to have 40 different criteria that we're subjecting these planets to. And how do we weigh and balance them all? What's most important and what's not, to come to our final understanding of the chart. And this is why all the medieval books were called the judgment of nativities, is after we take all the evidence that's been supplied, how do we make a final judgment? How do we understand all of the nuances of the ways in which a planet is strong and weak, and not that just that it's strong and weak, but the specific manner in which it is, and come to a final synthesis. Once we've done it, then we can place it in its house and look at the houses it rules and create our interpretation. So this is how the 5 days I've outlined in my mind. And there will be lots of handouts. You'll see my Gemini moon in its extreme manifestation with worksheets and handouts and tables that you'll be given to help you organize your thinking of how to arrive at that evaluation.
That sounds great. Thanks, Demetra. Abby asks, how many participants can enroll? And I can take that one. So Abby, we're going to be in the old library at the Kennedy School, which is really neat. And it's got a mix of seating. So we have a large conference table in there, but we also have a lot of casual seating. And so we are limited a little bit in the space there, and also wanted to keep the group small enough to be able to offer individual attention. So we're limited to between 12 and 15, and we have just a handful of spots left. So if you are interested, definitely let us know soon. If you have plenty of time, if you're waiting for Mercury to go direct, if you want to let us know after Mercury goes direct, you'll still have plenty of time to register for the early bird discount. If you can just keep in mind to try to let us know by May 31st. You'll still have a little bit of time after that still, but if you can kind of maybe save that date, May 31st, and let us know by then if you're planning on coming, and even send us an email if you think you might want to come but you're not sure. That'll help us prepare as well. Sheila Jean asks if you'll have time to get into the timing techniques like revolutions, progressions, and returns.
That is not on my schedule, and I was hoping for the second retreat to be focused on the timing. There's 2 reasons. Even though we're going to have 40 hours of class time, believe me, to try and do all the timing material plus the planetary condition material would be an overload. There's a certain point where I could keep teaching, but it's like when it's been raining too hard and the ground has absorbed all the moisture it can, the rest of it just runs off. But the second piece is that you can't really interpret any of the timing factors until you first feel confident in your understanding of the planet's natal condition. And one of the guidelines is that whatever a planet signifies, for better or worse, in the natal chart, when it becomes a Time Lord, then those events will come about in the life. So if you don't know what's going on in the natal chart, then you're clueless about how it's going to manifest in the activation.
Christina asks if this is going to be considered a beginner to intermediate level class.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, great.
And we have people at different levels, and this is part of the function of all of the group work that's going to happen in the afternoon, that the beginners will have the opportunity to learn from their fellow classmates, and their fellow classmates who think that they're intermediate will have the opportunity to hone their thinking so that it becomes ever clarified when they try to presented to someone who's asking them questions. We would always joke that when you start teaching an astrology class for the first time, that's the moment at which you realize what you do and don't understand, so that the intermediates will have an opportunity, as I said, to further develop their understanding. The beginners will have the opportunity to learn not only from me but from others, and there will be some teaching assistants milling about to help everyone.
Thank you. Sheila Jean wonders if you can recommend a philosophical background book for the Hermetic tradition, perhaps one that also has remediation delineated. She says the Venus ritual is exactly what I'm talking about, and I'm interested in affecting mundane events as possible.
Well, there are a number of books about the Hermetic tradition. The Egyptian Hermes, the Hermetica by Copenhagen, but they don't really, they definitely do not have the rituals outlined that ancient people performed. There's another set of scholarly books called the Greek Magical Papyri that have translations of texts and such that deal with ritual magic in the ancient world. But you're not going to, as far as I know, there is no contemporary book written by an astrologer that is detailing the magical and ritual use of the planets from this time period. But that certainly would be a wonderful area to explore and develop, and is wide open for the creation of your own body of work around that.
Right, and maybe that's a good topic for you to pursue, for sure, Sheila Jean. So Heidi asks, if we can't make it, is the same material available online or in a book? And I'll take the first stab at that one, Heidi. Because this workshop is experiential, the afternoon sessions, it's not something that you could get online or in a book. You know, it's just like being in a classroom with a teacher where you can ask questions and the teacher comes over and you're kind of talking things out casually and you're getting to talk about your specific question. And so it's definitely only something that you can get in a workshop format. But we are going to be, Demetra is putting together a workbook that she'll release at some point over the next year that this workshop is based on. So you'll be able to get access to some of the material that's presented. Demetra, do you have anything to add?
Yes. The releasing the book has taken me a while, but I feel that it will be complete this year. I'm coming to approaching the end of my intellectually creative life, and I feel some urgency to pull everything together. And this year is a good year for me to do that. But my hesitation is I really want to make sure that people understand how to correctly use the material that's out there. And I think this is why I've been loath to put out too much teaching publicly without that supervision. So yes, it will be available in a book. And yes, the best case scenario is as you approach the material to feel confident that you're doing it correctly. And that often entails having someone to look over your work and to let you know, because it can initially be easy to misunderstand the concepts.
Right. Jenny's asking if there are going to be a lot of chart examples. Jenny, there are going to be chart examples. Demetra mentioned that we're going to be looking at some politicians' charts, but you'll also be able to look at your own chart. And I believe there's space that if you want to bring a chart with you to look at, or a couple of charts, that you'll have some space to do that as well.
Right. Yeah, and I would add to that, certainly when we apply the principles in our own chart or the charts of people that we know well, then all of a sudden they begin to make sense. And then the private tutoring I do with my students, that's what we use. I have them come up with 4 to 6 charts of people that they know, and I have them apply the principles in those charts. So certainly coming with a few charts of your family or friends, you'll also, as you work through the process in your chart in the afternoon, you can duplicate it in other people's charts. And once you've gone through, I think about 10 with the process, 10 charts, and have the sense that you know what you're doing, then you can move very quickly in your evaluation. So yes, bring your charts with you.
Great. So if there aren't any more questions, I think we'll wrap up here shortly. I do want to close with a comment. Astarte had more of a comment than a question earlier that I passed over and saved for the end. And I will just share that with you. She says, the more I hear or learn of Hellenistic astrology, a higher or supernatural essence is experienced in that a flow of new energy presents. When studying modern or Western astrology, a singular or rational energy is noticed. There seems to be an aura or magnetic field relevant to Hellenistic, helping one dive deeper, like being helped, helping clients. And she says, thank you and gratitude. So thanks for that comment, Astarte.
Right. If I could just add one thing. They sometimes say that Hermes Trismegistus, whoever he was the fountainhead of Hellenistic astrology. And I thought of a few years ago when I went on a camping trip to the Canadian Rockies, and we went up to the Columbian ice fields. And there was the glacier melt in the springs that fed the 3 major rivers of the North American continent. One that flowed to the Pacific, one that flowed to the Atlantic, and the other that flew to the Arctic. And I felt that by connecting with that source, that the quality of the water was so pure and profound and alive. And I think that this is what you may be alluding to, that as you encounter some of the Hellenistic teachings, we're coming really close to the source of the fountain, the spring, the source of the spring that feeds the fountain of our understanding of astrology as a symbolic language, which the astrologer Plotinus says is a display of the thoughts of God at the moment that a person is born.
Beautiful. Thank you, Demetra. So, folks, you folks who are here with us to the end of the webinar, we have a special treat in that Astrology University is offering a coupon discount for your registration. And if you use the coupon code ASTROU, and I'll just type that in the chat window as soon as I'm done talking, but during checkout, if you put in ASTROU, it'll take $100 off of your registration. So definitely want to share that with you folks. I also just popped the link in there to register. You can also find registration going to Demetra's site and then clicking the schedule link where you'll see her calendar of events, and you can just scroll down there into the July 11th through 15th event. I'll also just say, because you'll scroll right by it, that Demetra will be in Seattle next week at the Northwest Astrology Conference, which we call NORWAC. So if any of you are in the area and planning to attend NORWAC, definitely say hello there. We'll both be there. And if you don't know about NORWAC, you can Google that. It's NORWAC, and I think it's norwac.net, where you can get more information about that conference. So if you have any other logistical questions, just feel free to email me, tony@demetrageorge.com or tony@astrologyuniversity.com. I'd be happy to answer any further questions you have about logistics, or I did work out a payment plan arrangement with another student, so if you'd like to, you can pay the balance due in installments leading up to the workshop. So if you have any needs like that, we're totally willing to work with you, so just let us know. So thanks everybody for attending this info session today, and thanks Demetra for taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to folks.
Yeah, really. I'd like to thank everyone for joining me for this hour. It was really fun being able to talk about what I have in mind to do, and I hope that I'll see some of you there.
Great, and I'm just going to go ahead and stop the recording, so we will see you guys next time. So thanks for joining us.